Hi all, welcome to the channel, welcome to the workshop. It's Monday, you know what that means, we have the Mallard back on the workbench. I've pulled the chassis down because we only are working on that today. Now see, 82 I've got here just as a reference. Obviously I did 82 last week, but we didn't use any of the parts from 82, so just need this for reference to find out what I'm actually doing with those parts. I think it was just drilling a couple of holes in the parts that you've just got. 83, again, I showed you this last week. So we've got all the rod mechanism, etc., for the brakes for the main chassis. So we'll be doing that one today. And you're already going to know by the title of this video whether I get to issue 84, which is where I'm just adding some sander boxes and some pipes for those sand boxes. So it seems really simple, and hopefully I can get through this one as well. And as I said, you're already going to know by the title of this video. So let's get into it. Let's get building. Right, let's give you a quick walkthrough through the magazines. Now, obviously, I showed you 82 last week, so I won't go through the entire magazine. But we had this piece, and this is what I needed from here. So we're just drilling out some holes. So we've got 0.7 and a 2.1 hole. So we've got a dozen or so holes to do at 0.7, and just looks like 3 or 4, 3 to do at 2.1. So I'll get all that done and make sure that's all prepped, and I'll get all the bits out ready as well. And then this is what we're actually doing, which is issue 83. And we've got another set of parts. Again, need to drill out some holes. Again, I'll do that separately off camera. And then we need the parts we've had previously. So we've got a bit of rod, 2 bits of rod. We've got this part from issue 83, and we've got the brakes as well that we've had back in issue 73, 76, whatever it says there. And as you can see, we're just doubling up a few parts. So those are on top of that one. Got to drill out some extra holes in the chassis. And then we've got all the wires that need to go through, similar to what we did with the tender chassis. And then we're hanging the brakes off, and then we have this that goes between those. And then we'll end up with this at the end of it, where we've got the brakes all in place. Yeah, we've got Mallard Story, classic locomotives. Now, I'm pretty sure I'll get to 84, so I will show you through this magazine as well. So as you can see, we've only got a couple of small parts, and we just need to drill a hole. This will be to accept the wire. We need to cut some very small bits of wire. That's going to go in the end of there. And it looks like then we need to file it down even further. I'll probably just try and cut that to a very small size, to be fair, and see if that'll work. And then we've got sound boxes to put in. We've got some more wire to do. We're going to bend that. Got another piece there. And that is it. So not a lot to do in this stage. And this one we've got classic locomotives and great railway journeys. And then notice here we've got firebox for the chassis frame assembly for the next issue. So at the end of this video, I'll try and pull out issue 85, and we can have a look at that for next week. Right, so I've gathered everything that I need for this stage of the build. So we've got the chassis that we're going to be working on. We last worked on that in issue 62 apparently. We've got some 0.7mm wire from issue 73. We have some 1mm wire. We did have some supplied in issue 77, but I think I still had some from a previous part, so I'm just using the 1mm wire I've got there. Obviously it doesn't matter which. I just checked with calipers, and that is 1mm wire. We've got the loco brakes that we were supplied in issue 76. I've just got this part that we supplied in last week's issue, and then we've got these two parts that was applied this time. I don't believe we're using any of the other parts that we have in those two frets at the moment. So I'll put those to one side and we'll see how we progress. Now, I have made a mistake. In the fret, like that, what I've done is I've cut off those points there. Now, I should have cut them much further apart. Wasn't paying attention when I was doing it. So, I don't have any little ends to go on where the brakes are. I'm hoping that it'll be close enough that I can just put a little bit of glue and that'll be enough to sort of hold that all together and hold that in place. But we shall see. Also, just note, I have drilled out all of the holes as well before taking it out of the fret. I just used standard, which is what you've seen before, using a block of wood, put the fret on there and then drilled into the block of wood. So we've got this piece. Now, as you can see, it's got detail on one side. It's completely plain on the other. Now, that's where these two parts come in. Again, got a plain side and a detailed side. And this is just a case of lining up the details like so. Making sure that all the holes, etc., line up. Now, I'll probably use a bit of 0.7 wire just to get these to line up. But that's going to sit on there like so. This one is then going to sit on there like so. And then I'm just going to run some glue down the side just to hold that in place. Now, this is extremely fiddly. I've got my clamps on here to help me out. But as you can see what I've done, flip it over. I've got a couple of 0.7mm wire in there just to hold it in location. I've already glued this end, but I've got the clamps on there, obviously holding it in place. And then all I'm doing is running a bead of glue down the edge, and that'll be enough to hold it together. And then what I'll do is I'll do the other side the same. But it's probably taken me about 20 minutes to get that all lined up. Actually not bent or anything like that. And you can see it's a little bit twisted, obviously the weight of the clamps on there because it's so so thin. So that will get shaped again when it comes to putting it on the chassis. But I'll get the other one in because it's probably going to take me another 20 odd minutes or so, and you don't want to sit around watching that. So yeah, I'll let that one dry briefly. I'll glue the rest of it around the edges, etc. And then I'll get the other one in and I'll do the exact same thing, just putting this 0.7mm wire in. I did have one down here, but when I glued it, I took it out and used it elsewhere. This one is probably the most difficult one to do because it's so thin and there's only one hole lining that one up, whereas the other's got 3 or 4 holes that you need to line up. Right, so that's both of those on there, looking like that. So we've got now detail on both sides. Now, with all those holes, we basically need to fill them in. And I've left this one in place, as you can see. We've got other ones here that I've done already. We're basically putting a rod through to create like bolt detail. Now, the way I've just worked out how to do it is leave that in there like so. Use a small pair of tweezers or pliers. Just use a hammer. Make sure that bashes through the hole, but doesn't protrude too much. So that's effectively your bolt detail on that side. And then just use a small bit of glue, first of all, just to touch the edge, like that. That'll be enough to hold it in place. And then just using a pair of side cutters or sprue cutters, cut the end off, like that. Now, got to do that 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 14, 15 more times. So I'm going to do all that off camera because, as you can see, little bit fiddly, but I figured I needed to show you how I was doing it. The instructions basically tell you to cut off several short lengths and then do this. So I think this way is the easier way of doing it. Just say put in a piece in, use a hammer, use a block of wood as well. That'll stop it from going through. These are quite tight holes. They're drilled at 0.7, so and we're putting a 0.7 in, and obviously with the glue, that's probably seeped in and closed the hole up a little bit as well. So that is certainly helping, because you can imagine how much more difficult that would be if that fell out every time. But it's so small you're not going to see it. I'll try and put it on the top camera, which might focus a bit better. That you can just about see. Hopefully we've got some bolt detail, or what looks to be bolt detail there. You can see that the holes are just effectively filled in. Now this is one of those things that I'm not going to spend ages doing. The instructions tell us to do what we've done before for these sort of things, is put a larger length through and then file it down until we've got like, yeah, 0.5 millimeter showing us on that. But this is going to be under the engine. Unless you're picking the engine up and showing underneath, this detail is almost not going to be seen at all. I will do this just because obviously I am filming it, and yeah, it's one of the things that needs to be done. So I will put all these bolt details in, but it would be very, very easy to skip this step. So that's going to take me a few more minutes. So I'll get all those done and then we'll move on to the next step. Right, so now that I've done all of those, so all of those are now filled in with that detail, I'm just going to take a file and just run it across the top of these and just flatten them off so they do look a bit more like bolts. Right, so got all those filed down. I'm just going to put that to one side for now. Now I've already done this. We have the holes, hopefully you can just about see on the side here. Got one there, there, and just at the back here. Now all of those have been drilled out. Well, I say drilled out, they're pretty much the right size anyway, to 1 millimeter or 1.1 millimeter. So you can see that 1 millimeter wire goes through there absolutely no problem, like so. The only problem we do have is this one. We had the sandboxes in the way, and I'm not going to drill all the way through those sandboxes, I decided. So what I'll do is I've just drilled in a little way, enough that this 1.1 millimeter wire will sit in, and we can just glue that in like so, and we can use that to hang the brakes off. Now we need, the instructions say 3 lengths of 45 millimeters. Obviously I'm only going to cut 2 lengths and then I'll sort out the other one when I come to do it. Obviously less than 45 millimeters because they'll just stick out. So that's 45 millimeters. There's another one at 45. So I've got those two. I say the other ones I'll just put in and I'll measure out, so they're the same as these. So I'm going to flip the chassis over so we've got it upside down. Move those bits out of the way. And we're going to place our first 45 millimeter through here, like so. I'm going to make sure it extends equally both sides. And we've got our second one, which is going through there. Now, you can see these are far too long at the minute because they're going to foul the rods there. But like we did with the tender, I'm sure we'll cut these back once we've got all the brake parts in place. Now I'm not securing those ones in place just yet, but I am going to secure these front ones, and I'll cut them to roughly the same length at the moment. And then we'll trim them down at the end. Right, so happy with the front position, happy with these other ones, so I will just put a bit of glue on the inside here. And that'll just hold those in place. Now, I actually can't remember if I've mentioned this on this video before. Obviously, I am using glue because this is not a running model. Now, however, some of the keen of you may have noticed there is actually some solder on this engine. So I have actually soldered these bits quite badly. It's certainly not best work, but these kept falling off basically because there's not enough surface area there to glue it. So I have soldered that section there. So if you are new to this build, check out the rest of the videos, and yeah, you'll see that I have actually done some soldering on it, but I didn't video that because it was a afterthought in the end, where they just, every time I moved the engine, just those bits just fell off, and it was getting quite annoying. So yeah, resorted to solder on that one quite some time ago. Right, so now we've got all those rods in, we are basically going to be putting in the brakes. Now, if you remember with these, we were told to drill the holes out a long time ago, and we've got a 1mm, and I can't remember what the size of the other one is. It's probably 0.7. But basically, these brakes, the 1mm hole, surprisingly, is going to go onto the 1mm wire. And they're just going to hang down like so. Now, the instructions do say about gluing these, but if you remember when I did the tender brakes, I didn't glue them straight away because it made it easier when actually moving them around and actually getting them to attach to the other parts of the engine. And again, I'm going to use these ones. I'm going to stick those on this side. So hopefully try and get these done effectively in tandem. Now, one thing I am going to try and be cautious of is when putting these on, make sure they've got enough clearance for the wheels, because obviously at some point when we paint this, we will need to be able to get the wheels off. And we haven't actually been asked yet to take any of this apart and paint any of this part. We have been asked to paint other bits, like the cab, etc., which I haven't yet done. There will be a video coming for that at some point. But yeah, need to consider where these go. And theoretically, it should be possible because of the piston, etc., or the cylinder on the axle there. That will just come out, and we've got these off anyway. So it shouldn't just be a case of come out, it should twist and actually be able to come out quite easily. So with our engine upside down, we are going to put in this lower brake rod connections. So just wiggle that one out from there. Get the one in there like so, that I have still got attached. Get that one lined up in there, like so. Now, see the position of these, we do want it so that the wheels and the brakes all line up, which might need, see, a little bit of wiggling to actually get it to line up properly. Now, that looks pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do is try and get that resting in a position that I like. And then I'll glue these rear ones, and then that'll set us up with the positions for the rest of them. So I've only glued it to this 1mm rod at the moment, so this is still free to move around. Now, see, the tricky thing here is that I cut off those bits that were meant to be attaching there. So my solution for that is going to be using a bit of the 0.7mm rod and just gluing it like this. So again, just getting that in the right position, and I glue that like that. Again, you're not really going to see this part of the engine, so this should be absolutely fine to do this. Again, what I'll do is I'll glue the caliper first so it doesn't move around, and then I'll put this 0.7mm rod in. So now I'm just going to glue this very last one. Just wiggle it out a little bit. Again, just holding it in place, roughly lining it up with that rod, like so. So all of those are now glued to that 1mm wire. Still not glued it to this drawbar yet. But as I said, what I'm going to do is just cut off a small length of this 0.7mm wire. I'll just lift this up and I'll put that through there, like so. And then I'll glue all this up. So if you are building this and you're following me along, don't make the same mistake I have. But if you have, this is how you rectify it. And then all's left to do is do a couple of 0.7s on that one as well. And as you can see, they don't need to be long lengths of wire at all. It's just enough to go through here, and then putting it effectively on top of the drawbar or under it, depending on which way you're looking at the engine. In this orientation, it's obviously underneath that, so you can't see the rectified mistake. As I'm sure, when the engine is stood on its wheels, you're never going to see this again anyway. Right, so we've got that one in there as well. And so, a bit more glue. And that's all in place, like so. Now, the only thing we need to do now is the 45mm wires that we put in to hold the top of the brakes, we now need to cut off so they are flat against the calipers. Now, don't do this when you're looking at it, because they will fly right across the workshop, and if you're looking at it, they'll go in your eye. That was a good one. Right, so now those wires are in place, you can see that's not glued at the moment. So the very last step I'm going to do is just lift this up, put some glue on the ends of these wires, and then just drop that back down, and that will hold that in place. And where I've put those wires in, I'm just going to cut them flush as well. And that is all there's to do in that stage. So I will move on to 84. And as I say, I don't think there's a great deal to do in 84. So we'll put that to one side for a moment and let all that dry up. And I've got these sander boxes and they're small details. And the first thing we need to do is do some drilling. And the very first thing we're going to be doing is in these parts, we have a little dimple just here. And we're going to drill a 1.4mm hole in there. And this is to accept this part. So we got that one deep enough. And the exact same thing for this one. So that now goes in there like so. And we do need to drill a hole in these as well. Now I'll just hold this on there with a little peg like that. And we've got a little dimple here, and we need to drill a 1.1mm hole. Now this is obviously to take 1mm wire. So just drill it in there. You need to do the exact same thing for the other one as well. So now we're going to assemble these, and they're going to assemble that way around. So we've got this pointing out this way, and just going to dip the end of this in a bit of glue and pop it in there. Right, so now that those are done, we need to prep the chassis a little bit. And these two cylinders here, we basically need to drill in a little bit of 1.6mm hole. Now it does say about removing the front wheels, which will make it a little bit easier. So we'll just remove those rods for a minute. So that's the front wheels removed. I'm just going to drill basically where the chassis has got that little hole. You can see the hole in the metal there. We just need to drill into these cylinders slightly. Now I don't need to drill it in too much. It says in the instructions like 4mm, but all we're doing, we're effectively just adding a bit of detail in, like a bolt detail almost. So we're using the 1.6mm flat wire, or not flat wire, bar, bit of this. That's going to go in there, and we're going to basically cut it down and flat it off. And so we only need enough to take this and actually be able to glue it in, which I think that's absolutely fine. Just going to cut a couple of short lengths, pop it in some glue, and then we'll just push that in like so. And same for this side. And I'll cut off the majority of the excess, like that. And then just use a file to flat off the ends. So that's that done. And I got those filed down. I'm just going to put the wheels back in. Right, so next up, we're going to be concentrating on the sandboxes. Now, we need to cut a couple of lengths of wire at 25mm. There's one. And there's two. Now, this is the 1mm wire. And we also need to cut one length at 20mm. So that's those. Now, the instructions show that we need to put this sandbox onto there first, and then we need to put the wire in and bend it round. Obviously, this is going to be in the way for us doing that easily. So I think the easier option is to probably just bend the wire first and actually attach it to the sandbox. Now I'm just using pliers here. That's the curve of the handle, like so. Now the idea is that it will go in here, like so, and then that's also going to represent the sand pipe, like so. So just need a little bit more bending just to get that to shape correctly. Line that up, and as you can see, that follows the curvature of the wheel really nicely, and that's what we need to do. And we get that glued in place. So with that roughly in place like that, I'll get that pipe glued in first. Again, that's just going to be a case of touching it with a little bit of super glue, like so. And then that's obviously now in the place we want it to be. And obviously this is a larger surface area, so I will just put a bit of glue like that. We'll line up that lug with that hole. Ensure that sandbox is level with the rest of the chassis. And we have sandbox in just like that. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for the other side. Again, just going to find that lug in that hole, making sure that's level, and that's our sandbox in like so. Now we're just going to flip this over, and we're going to finish off this with actually two lengths of 20mm wire. Should have cut a second one. And we're basically going to be putting in the pipes for these two sandboxes here, and it's going to come out of here, bend at 90 degrees. So the very first thing I'm going to do is get the very tip. We're just going to bend that at 90. Like so. Now, obviously that's going to sit in there, like that. And then we need to bend another 90, obviously coming this direction. And that's going to be about there. So we'll just check that. That looks pretty good. Now, the only thing I'm going to do is using two sets of pliers with that, holding that like that, just going to twist this one like that. And then just do another test fit. Obviously, we don't want this touching the wheel. that's going to sit in there. We probably need to twist it a little bit more. Again, just going to hold it like that. Just do a twist like this. And then the last thing I'm going to do is hold that piece there and just do a very slight curve on this pipe. So we then have something that looks like that. So you've got a curve there, you've got that 90-degree there, and hopefully when it goes onto the engine like this, it should be a fairly good fit. Now all I'm going to do with this is dip the end of this into glue, hold it there, and let the glue set. Now, pliers are probably a little bit large for this job, so tweezers is the better option for this. And I will show you a better image of this in a moment once that's set. Obviously, just need to make sure it is not in contact with the wheel. Right, so hopefully I'll show you on the other camera. So looking just like that. Going to do the exact same thing for this side. So we've got our other 20mm bit of wire. Again, just dipping the end of this in some glue and popping it in that hole. And again, just holding it in place just while that glue sets. So we have those two in there like so, and that is all there's to do in that stage. I'll put all the coupling rods and etc back on just to make sure they're all safe and they're all good. I have made sure when I put the front wheels back on that I have courted them correctly again, so all the coupling rods etc will line up properly. But that is it. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please remember to hit the like button below and give us a massive thumbs up. So that's the Mallard done again for another week. We got our sandboxes in and all our braking gear at the bottom there. Bit of a marathon, bit fiddly, but I knew it would be, hence why I didn't end up doing it last week. But managed to combine another couple of issues, obviously with the sandboxes, etc. So next week we do have the firebox assembly, as I've shown you, but I'll try and see what else I can do next week, because that doesn't seem like a lot of work. So I'll see if I can bundle it up with another couple of issues as well, depending on what there is. Now, obviously, that's all main chassis work, but I do know at some point soon we're going to be flipping back to the tender chassis. The reason I know that is because issue 88, we get the tender body. I've had it sat in the box for quite some time. Obviously, trying not to compress it is just plastic, so it could easily get crushed. So it's always been on top of the pile of magazines. But yeah, that is coming in issue 88, and obviously this is only 85. So maybe, depending on what is in 86 and 87, maybe next week I'll do a 3-part bundle, and then we can potentially move back onto the tender and see what's there. But that is the Mallard. It's looking really, really good. And we're getting towards the end of it, which is really good. As I say, with regards to painting of it, I will be looking at that soon. Or it might be a case of that I build the entire engine, and then when it comes to the last issue sort of thing, I'm sure there's going to be lots of bits where it's saying about painting, etc. I might just do one mass paint video. So we transform it from a brass and metal blob to a finely tuned looking Mallard. So make sure you hit the subscribe button on that, and then you'll know when I release new videos. Also, along with that, hit the bell notification. That way you get notified when I release new videos. And this will be coming out hopefully every week, barring any disruptions, etc., which I always try and let you know about. But this is a staple on the channel at the minute. And once this is gone, then what I'm going to try and do, I'll get on to doing the Flying Scotsman. Now, as I said before, that one's going to be a little bit more complex because it is half done and has not been done in like a full order as such. There's even bits that have been painted already as well. So again, make sure you hit the subscribe button and ding the bell for notifications, and then you won't miss out when that one potentially comes on the channel as well. Also, you'll know when I release videos for all the other model builds that I've got currently going on. You may notice that the skyline is looking a little bit more advanced than you last saw it at the moment. So I have recorded the video for the skyline, and that'll be coming out during the week. So make sure you check out that as well. Until next time, I'll see you around. Cheers.